First thing I'd like to ask you is, so if you can tell me who you are and what's the achievement you've had that people are most impressed by generally.
Right. Okay. Well, my name's Shayne McQuade. I'm currently the CEO of Voltaic Systems and the founder of that company. So what I probably have done most publicly so far is designing the solar bag and launching a company around portable solar chargers. So like this, that's a portable solar charger. So basically a backpack with a solar panel in the front, battery inside that stores the charge, and you can plug in your iPhone or iPad and some of them in a laptop whenever you need power. So it's pretty useful in a lot of situations. What I'm most interested in is sort of developing country applications and emergency preparedness and all that sort of thing. There's some real opportunities with portable solar to actually, impact different social situations, and so that's what I've done so far. I've got plans to extend that business into broader solar business that will have a much greater social impact.
Brilliant, thank you very much, Shane. So the bag is the first step, and then you're moving to other stuff.
That's right. And I think in trying to do any sort of social enterprise, there's a difference. People often look at sort of a charity that's entrepreneurial, and that's a social enterprise, and it is in one definition. But if you want it to be self-sustaining other than through charity or government funds or whatever, you really need to build an underlying business platform. And so my hope is that Voltaic is that platform, and all of us that are involved with it are interested in having a social and an environmental impact. And we hope that, with this as a platform, which is profitable and generates good revenue and gets us a lot of attention, we should be able to then launch into developing country solar household and lighting systems.
Fantastic. So I guess the next questions will go into two directions. One is understanding what's made your business model financially sustainable, and why is it that it works?
Yeah.
And then the other side, after that, I'll ask you a bit more about the social aspect of why you do what you do. Can we start first with why do you think that your model has worked, and what's made the financial success of the Voltaic bags?
To be honest, it's a real challenge to make it work financially, and particularly when we first started, because it's a good idea, it works, people like it, but I had some constraints in developing the product. One was it had to work, because I don't want to produce. There's a lot of solar junk out there, and I don't want to produce something that doesn't work. And so, what that means in practical terms is a bigger solar panel, so it'll charge in a reasonable amount of time. A bigger battery inside, or many products have no battery at all. It needs a battery so that you can store the power and it's available when you need it. Just that costs us money. People will buy a solar bag irrespective. They'll actually, many people will look at it and think, oh, the panel's smaller on this one and that means it's lighter and that's better. No, actually it's just less power. And so those decisions actually undermined our financial viability or reduced our profitability. Let's say we've always been profitable or break even. And then we did things like recycled PET fabric, so soda bottles made into fabric, and that took a lot of work finding suppliers, as well as probably doubles our fabric costs. So I don't know that I would say we're successful because we're trying to make some of those decisions, produce a quality product and use reclaimed materials where we can, etc. Although I do think that over time we've managed to build a brand, and people now recognize that if you're buying a Voltaic product, it's going to work, and if it doesn't work, if something goes wrong with it, we're going to do everything we can to make our customers happy, because they're pretty much walking around with a little solar billboard on their back and our name right above it. We want to make sure that when people stop them and say, is that solar? What does it do? Does it work? The answer has to be yes. And that actually drives our business. And that probably is a distinction in our business model, in that we've spent very, very, very little on marketing. It's all being word of mouth through the blogs, people getting excited about a new idea, just generally into solar and into what we're trying to do environmentally, and then word of mouth, thousands of bags on thousands of bags wandering around the world, and everyone's saying, what's that? Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
And so you would say then that, so the success of the word of mouth marketing, I guess, is that you've got a product that actually works, and that people say, this is great, I love it.
Yeah, and I don't think people would be saying, this is great, I love it, if it wasn't solar and trying to do something different. I mean, I think there's a general desire out there to be innovative and to address sort of sustainable energy issues and so on. And so I think that we're not going to generate that much power off a bunch of backpacks, but we do tap into people's interest in that area, and we get people thinking about it and give people an opportunity to experiment with it. And I think in terms of sort of doing well by doing good, I think there's an element of that. We're benefiting from people's interest in that important environmental issue. And that probably helps sustain our business. It helps promote the word of mouth and puts us in a position where we can say, okay, great, so now we've got a platform, we've got suppliers, we've got a warehouse and a website and a lot of PR attention, search engine ranking. We can take that and do even more now.
Brilliant. And so that's what you touched on from the beginning, which is that the bags is the beginning and you're moving into other stuff. And you said that you don't think the bags are necessarily changing the world on their own, but they're starting a conversation. Why are you doing all this?
Well, I guess, as you would argue, there's a lot of people that want to do something that feels more worthwhile than just make money. And, I've come from an entrepreneurial background. I've had some success along the way, and it's thrilling and enjoyable, but ultimately I got to a point where I had to stop and say, okay, well, what do I really care about? And because it's whatever that is that's going to get me out of bed in the morning and have me work until all hours of the night and doing whatever it takes. And after a while, it's hard to get excited about a lot of stuff that's purely financial. And so what I'm looking for is to find opportunities that let me do something that's a little more purely financial.
Okay, fantastic, brilliant. Thank you very much. And in terms of the excitement, for you personally, what is the most exciting thing in the next coming years?
I think solar in developing countries is really exciting. It's the developing world is about to be transformed. There are 1.5 billion people sitting in the dark, mostly burning kerosene and spending a lot of their money on it. They don't have electricity. Increasingly, they have cell phones now, but still no electricity. And so what has to happen, and what can happen now with the reduced price of solar and LED lighting and batteries, is that we can get into those developing countries and deliver a product that's cost effective enough for people that have virtually, that are on $1 or a couple of dollars a day to actually make the choice between kerosene and solar. So long as we deliver a quality product that's at the right price point, people will make that choice, and ultimately, that entire chunk of the global population is going to transition to solar. And what's great then is beyond that, solar will then have a toehold in lighting. So it'll be a little solar panel and a single light, still 5 times better than the kerosene light, and pays for itself in a few months of saved kerosene. But then what's going to happen is more and more people are going to plug in their cell phone to that same system. They'll scale it up as they grow in wealth and so on. It'll be 2 lights and a cell phone. And then tablets are going to really hit and really have an impact. And it seems odd, right? Because tablets are what we're all messing around with, the latest gadget, etc. But much like cell phones, they will soon be pervasive in the developing world. What's great about a tablet is that it replaces all of the other things you would have needed electricity for as you went through the development cycle. So after you get a light, you want maybe a radio and a stereo and a TV and a computer and now a cell phone. A tablet is really all of those things. You can stick a radio chip and a TV chip in a tablet, and it's not going to add significantly to the cost. You can already get a $35 tablet, like a 7-inch Android tablet in India. So all of those things that use so much power and required AC power and inverter from DC to AC and all this stuff that was really just put electricity out of reach of developing country consumers, a lot of developing country consumers, is now overcome with the tablet. Because the tablet's, it's like charging 3 cell phones or 4 cell phones. Panel maybe that big. I mean, pretty much. You take one of our bags, maybe 2 extra panels and twice the battery capacity, and that could be an entire household system running a phone, a tablet, and a couple of lights. And whereas it used to be, a panel that's 6 foot by 3 foot would be kind of what you need to get into all the things that a tablet can do. So I think that's really exciting. That's what we're going to be doing for the next decade, probably, and beyond.
Brilliant. And I'd like to ask you to go a little bit further about this. Why is this so exciting for you that people in the developing world get light and tablets and phones? Why is that important or exciting?
Yeah, I don't know that I have an answer for that question. It is exciting. I mean, it feels good to me to be able to get involved with something that's going to have an impact, that's going to change people's lives, and that I think is actually basic human nature, that most of us sort of will get satisfaction out of doing that sort of thing. I think the challenge is that most of us don't have the opportunity to do it. It's not always that easy. It's not always within reach. For us, it is, and so we'll go for it.
So it's exciting because you can change people's lives.
Yeah, we can change people's lives. It's also and more broadly by having an environmental impact, we're also doing not only changing people's lives, but there's an entire ecosystem at risk at the moment. That kerosene that's being burned in those lights, it's about 100 kilos a year of kerosene, of CO2 from burning the kerosene. So 10 kerosene lights replaced with solar is a ton of CO2 not going into the atmosphere every year, times maybe several 100 million households. There's a real impact there, and that then trickles through to many environmental situations. And I very much like to see a lot of environments preserved that are at risk at the moment. This is just one step, obviously, in many that need to be taken to get us there. But yeah, that's important to me. I want to see that happen.
Brilliant, thank you very much. If before I ask you to show us the bag a little bit more,
yeah,
what would be your one tip if you had to give tip to someone who's trying to do well by doing good, to make a living from doing good? What would it be?
Well, I think I think there's a strong argument these days that it's viable, that it's feasible to do that. I think there are some real challenges in it, and I think what's happened is people have shifted from sort of a charity model to a business model, and I'd encourage that shift because in many cases charity is the right model, particularly for healthcare and situations like that. But in many other situations, if you can find a way to make something that's commercially viable and has a social environmental impact, then you're in a position, I think, to really sustain that business and grow that impact. And so my tip would be find a way to make it pay for itself. We don't need to make a huge profit out of developing country lighting, but we can spend all the money we've got and it's only going to be so many households if we're just giving them away. We need to make it pay for itself, and if we can get to a point where it does that, then it has an opportunity to replicate. And chances are it will be other companies that copy whatever innovations we come up with, and they'll do it a little bit cheaper and get it out there, and still, that's great. It's starting to rain.
We're gonna get rain. Do we have time to quickly show us the bag, or should we do that inside?
Sure. So, not generating a lot of electricity at the moment. It's pretty cloudy, but you can see the little light in there is indicating there's a bit of sun or a bit of light hitting the panel. What happens is this battery inside stores any electricity generated by the solar panels, and I would have set this up and made it nice and neat if I knew it was going on the web, but there's a USB port in the top of that, and so you would just plug in your USB charger into that port whenever you need to. This is going to store power for months, and so so you've got power there when you need it. Or if the battery was flat, you hadn't been in the sun, pretty much plug in a phone, stand in the sun, and make a phone call after about 30 seconds. It's enough power in the panels to run a phone call. And then other than that, it's a backpack design where we've tried to integrate it as well as possible and use this recycled soda bottle fabric that I was talking about earlier.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Where can people find the backpack?
VoltaicSystems.com.
Thank you very much for taking the time
You're welcome.
and for sharing your thoughts, advice, and your story.
Thanks for asking.